the most heartwarming stories I get. I've had a handful of these, mostly close friends, but you brought up like acne, and I've got like a young girl that's 6 or 7, childhood eczema like everywhere. I've had 2 eczemas, an acne, and what was the other one? I forget. But these are young kids, and my children are 8 and 10 now. They've voluntarily and involuntarily sort of been along for the ride this whole time, and are early testers. But man, when you have a 6 or 7 year old girl, who's gonna eventually be a teenager, and you think about how mean kids are and how embarrassing things like eczema or acne can be to a young kid. I had acne as a kid, and just to be able to provide them an all natural solution that works is, it's hard to find a more motivating muse or underlying motivation to do this. So like the acne creams, I'm still trying to figure this out, but I'm not here bemoaning active ingredients in skincare, especially from a prescriptive standpoint. I will hold on to a little bit of promise that, dermatologists, recommending this active ingredient for your particular skin condition actually know what they're talking about. The problem with the skincare, and this is the problem you see across the board, is it's the carrier cream, right? So think about a bland carrier cream that's an emulsification of a water and probably a cheap, crappy seed oil or petroleum derivative, but it's a fat at the end of the day. Well, this was my own experience. So I had this watershed moment with the lard, and so my early recipes for Farrow were, well, how do you do it? Well, you go to Google and you DIY skin cream, and it's, well, you take 75% by volume water and you heat it to this temperature, and you take 20% fat and you heat it to this temperature, and then you get an emulsifier and you make a cream. Great. Okay. So away I go making these creams, and they were luscious. I mean, they were just so unbelievably luscious until they went rancid in about 10 days. Okay. So, I tried various antimicrobial essential oils. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a lot of things. And I could never get these creams to stay shelf stable for longer than like 2 weeks. I mean, putting them in the fridge, all sorts of stuff, they would just go rancid. Here's the point: in a cream that you've emulsified water and fat together, this water acts as a food source for mold and bacteria. And so you take your standard run-of-the-mill pharmaceutical grade goop that they inject some active ingredient into for your acne or cheilitis or psoriasis or whatever. The problem is probably not the active ingredient. The problem is all the preservatives and chemicals that have to also be put in the cream to keep that bacteria and mold from developing. And, I said this early on, we know next to nothing about the microbiome on our skin and in our guts and the role that it plays in human thriving. But, this, and I hope your listeners know this, intuitively, those bugs are there for a reason. If they weren't, they wouldn't be there. And so in the case of these crap creams, my standard rule is if it has water as the first ingredient, which is most creams, you shouldn't use it, because there are chemicals in there in that cream keeping bacteria from growing, which means the minute you spread it on your skin, you're effectively napalming your skin's microbiome, right? And so, yeah, but it's the kids, man. When I get a story about a kid that's all of a sudden miraculously my chronic acne or my eczema or whatever is gone, it just warms my heart, man.